Itauma Sports Talk worldwide with some news for the world of boxing. So y'all know what time it is. You ain't in a rush to get concussed, baby. Now, Mr. New Concussion. Let's talk about heavyweight sensation. We got to give him that. You know, a young guy coming up. We got a 20-year-old guy in the heavyweight division that's raising hell. He's raising hell. It's looking real good, right? And that'll have to be Moses Itauma. I think Moses Itauma now is 13-0 with about 11 knockouts. I might be a little bit wrong on that, but it's in that area. Everybody who didn't know him, his last fight with Dillian White, and Dillian White's a high-profile contender. So, you know of Dillian White. Now, what we do to these fighters all the time in boxing, right, is simple. You know, the people on the internet, they forget all these people are pro boxers, right? So when someone beats somebody, here comes the tearing down of the fighter that he beat, right? Like, for example, Dillian White, well, that's the old version of Dillian White. You know, some people, hey, he didn't have one of his right weight. You got short notice. You have, you know, when you didn't have a long training camp, which is legitimate, though. You know, and, you know, somebody might have had a layoff or whatever. And the problem with that is the fighter that fights him, you know, it seems like we're asking him to have a time machine. You know, it's like, hey, I gotta fight this guy when his prime was, right? And then we mess up with the primes, right? If we like somebody, his prime could be 18 months. We do that with Mike Tyson, really. You know, because, you know, I think Lennox Lewis is the GOAT, and I think Lennox Lewis is better than Mike Tyson. Better even in his prime, because they should have fought, right? So, and my point is, we give Mike Tyson, man, his prime was from January 1986 to, you know, boy, to March 1988. Couldn't nobody beat him in them 18 months. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's just not the other fighter's prime, because Lennox Lewis's prime was got darn 13 years. You know what I mean? So just because the other dude messes up, you know, we always mess with people's primes. Like, you got to fight him in, you know, I got to have a time machine to fight him exactly when people think he was all right. You know what I'm saying? So that's not really fair to the fighters who keeps winning these fights and beating these named fighters, and then we give excuses for the named fighters who lose. So that's the thing. So Moses Itauma probably hasn't beaten anybody in their prime yet. But he only got 13 fights, so he's got time to do that. But we ain't gonna be nobody in his prime. If he fights anybody awesome right now, it's not gonna be his prime. So let's just say that up front. Even if he fought Alexander Usyk right now, well, that's the Usyk after he's done everything. And I would be one of those, because I think Usyk is awesome, right? So I would be the one saying, well, Usyk has accomplished everything. Two-time undisputed champion, beat everybody, you know, 2 division. He ain't got nothing else to prove. That's what I would say, for sure, right? Boom. So that's, you know, not good for Moses Itauma. You know, if he beats Anthony Joshua right now, you know, Anthony Joshua, well, you know, it ain't hard to beat Anthony Joshua. He's chinny, and he's on the tail end, well, not tail end, but kind of on the end of his career. If he beats Tyson Fury, but Tyson Fury ain't really motivated no more. He was just trying to get some money. If he beats Deontay Wilder, oh man, he's a shell of his self. He's 40 years old now. You know what I'm saying? So who can Moses Itauma really beat who we're like, man, that's a good win? So at the end of the day, he's just got to do what he's got to do and just keep winning, because you are going to be able to tear down all the opponents of somebody if that's what you're up to. You know, I see that with the best fighter in the world, with Terrence Crawford. We try to tear down his opponents, you know, all those opponents, all these awesome opponents, you know, that he fought, all these people with no losses or one loss throughout his career. If it's 135 to 140, 147, all those fighters, people that want to tear him down will. I've seen people, when it comes to Alexander Usyk, the Super 6 tournament, the WBSS tournament, right? You know, people, because they don't know these people that he fought, act like those people were nothing. You know what I'm saying? To say that undefeated Marius Briedis is nothing is ignorant to me. It's like, then find out who Marius Briedis is. And then the dude beat him in Latvia at his hometown. Find out who Amarit Gassiev is. Hard-punching guy who Abel Sanchez trained. And he went to beat him in Russia, right? And he was undefeated too. You know, that's it. Find out who Marco Huck is. one of the most decorated cruiserweights we've had in a long time. You know, he's up there in the top 5-6 cruiserweights in terms of title defenses, right? So find out who those guys are. Find out who Michael Hunter is. Michael Hunter is probably one of the most underrated, underappreciated fighters we got that's American. He's done some things, and he just has totally bad luck. So we can tear down opponents, and people do that. Always do that. So Moses Itauma, next opponent, is going to be a decent opponent, right? He's got Dillian White now, and here are the three people who, who they're talking about who he could fight. Now, you guys tell me which ones you think is okay, because I think they're all okay. Right? I think some's better than the other, but they're all okay. One will be Jermaine Franklin, right? A durable heavyweight that's never been knocked out, right? And Jermaine Franklin, he needs to do something if he really wants to get in the upper echelon and stop being a gatekeeper. So he's going to really want to, he's going to train for Moses Itauma. Plus, Itauma, is out to knock people out and early. So I'm thinking Jermaine Franklin going to be like, nah, this ain't happening. So he's going to train really hard if he gets the fight. So that's a pretty good option, right? That's a pretty good option. The next one is Kubrat Pulev. Now, me personally, I've been liking Kubrat Pulev for a long time. He's up in age, but I've been liking Kubrat Pulev. I even thought Kubrat Pulev was going to beat Anthony Joshua and others. Kubrat Pulev is a pretty good fighter, but he's up in age. He's over 40 now, right? So I don't think his speed is going to be that of what he's going to be able to stop Moses Itauma. But it still would be a good win if Moses Itauma could get him on the resume, because Kubrat Pulev is not getting beat by everybody. You know what I'm saying? Just do your homework and find out who Kubrat Pulev is. Guy from Bulgaria. He's a very confident and very proud type of guy. Trust me. He's very proud, Kubrat Pulev. And that's what I like about him. He, whatever y'all talking about, I'm proud. He's a proud dude, right? So that would be a good win. And it's one other guy, and I thought that was a real good one too, and that's Filip Hrgović. And Filip Hrgović is, he's a winner. He's a winner. Now, Filip Hrgović has that only loss, and that was to Daniel Dubois. And, of course, like every loss, there's excuses. He got cut early. He went in a fight with no respect at all for Daniel Dubois and punched himself out, and he was sick on the fight. But we're not going to make excuses for him, because there's always excuses for the guy who's not on top, who comes out, comes up a little bit short. But Filip Hrgović, I think we can all agree, is a good fighter, right? A good heavyweight fighter, and he has a chin too. So if the thing is, the goal for Moses Itauma is to get him rounds, get him names and rounds, right? Then these three fighters are pretty good fighters to have on his hit list, or as the opponents that he's trying to get next. So what y'all do is y'all let me know who you think is the best between Jermaine Franklin, Kubrat Pulev, and Filip Hrgović. And like I say, all three of them will be okay as far as I'm concerned for his next fight, right? So let's see what's happening. Moses Itauma is the guy right now. There's a couple of other guys in the heavyweight division who's gonna, give him all he wants, probably. But as it looks right now, he hasn't been challenged. Even up until now, he hasn't been in a barn burner of a fight, hasn't been hit much, right? So everybody's gonna question his chin. Of course, they're gonna do that. But his point is, hey, if I go through my whole career without having to test my chin, I'm okay with that. And that's his, how you're supposed to think. You're not in there trying to prove your chin to anybody, right? Get them out of there before they, get you out of there. So he's got a good trajectory, and he's just, pretty awesome up until now, Moses Itauma. So let's check it out. Let's see who he fights next. But whoever it is, y'all better train good, because Moses ain't no joke. Itauma Sports Talk Worldwide. And I'm out of here, y'all.